Peace. What's good, YouTube? It's your man Kareem back again with another video. Alright, so this is going to be the second part of the law of detachment in the occult, right? And here we're going to be looking at the Tao Te Ching as another source, and really how to dive deeper into this law of detachment, how to dive deeper into understanding detachment on our spiritual journey and using it for personal enlightenment, personal growth, spiritual transformation. All right. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So verse 6 of the Tao Te Ching says, "The most submissive thing in the world can ride rough over the most unyielding thing in the world, that which is without substance, entering that which has no gaps. That is why I know the benefit of taking no action. The teaching that uses no words, the benefit of taking no action. These are beyond the understanding of all, but a very few in the world." And so in this chapter, it's saying basically that the less that you do, the more that comes to you, the more understanding comes to you, right? And most people, they're caught up in doing everything that they can, working as hard as they can in every area of their lives, whether it's optimal for them or not, and just riding so hard on, hustling so hard on becoming better, becoming a better human, right? Becoming a better person in general, right? And we have to recognize that the more that we just surrender to what's within ourselves, and we just let go of this matrix, we let go of trying to be something, right? We let go of this identity that we have, and we just recognize that we don't have to do anything. We really don't have to do anything. The only thing that we have to do is be, and the minute that we just be, that's when we really begin to understand the truth of ourselves. That's when we begin to understand. And so this is why you want to detach from debating so hard, not just against yourself, but against the world. You want to detach from that. You want to detach from hustling so hard. The only hustle that you should really have is in your own transformation, because that should matter to you more than anything. That's what you're here for in the first place, to transform through lessons, right? And to do and be who you're supposed to be, whatever that is, whoever that perfect being is, be that. And another verse goes in to say, "Your name or your person, which is dearer? Your person or your goods, which is worth more? Gain or loss, which is a greater bane? Excessive stinginess is sure to lead to great expense. Too much store is sure to end in immense loss. Knowing contentment, you will suffer no humiliation. Knowing when to stop, you will be free from danger. You will thereby endure." Right? So this verse is very key too, because it's showing us the fallacy in everything that we place value in, right? We place value in our goods because we think our goods is worth more than our person, and the world is what tells us that too. That's what these agendas are pushed against, to make it seem like what you become in this world, right? What your status is in this world is worth more than who you really are. What you present to the world is worth more than who you really are. That's why Instagram is so popular, because you get to present all the parts of yourself that look great, right? But you never present those lessons that you learn. You never present those hard times that you go through, and you only want, there's so much value in showing off what you gain in this world, right? And then it's also like sometimes you gain the wrong things as a result of that. And so that's why they ask, which is a greater bane, gaining or losing, right? Because sometimes you gain things that don't necessarily benefit you, so it's still a loss. And and anything in excess, right? Whenever we take anything into excess, that's when we really begin to attach to things, right? When we hold and we hoard too much, we keep everything to ourselves. We keep knowledge to ourselves. We keep truth to ourselves. We keep the truth from ourselves. That's a form of hoarding. We put a bunch of things in our houses. We build up all these materials. All these things, they don't they don't lead us anywhere. But when you're content with yourself, you're content with the perfect being within you, you're content, nothing can affect you. And you can only become content by pulling back from this world, detaching from this world, letting go of what society tells you that you're supposed to be, letting go of who you were taught to be by your parents, who you were taught to be by your teachers. The most perfect teacher is the darkness within you. And I said that in the shadow work video. The most important teacher is the darkness within you, because the darkness is not afraid to show you the truth. And that truth will set you free. That truth will bring the light. Right? But the darkness is the first step. The darkness is the beginning. So you have to go into that part of yourself and bring out the truth. And once you accept yourself, you become content. And you become content once you detach from who you're expected to be and who you're expecting yourself to be, and just be who you are. Right? See, that's the thing that we got to realize. We just got to be who we are. Be who we know we are. And then ride that out. Follow that path. Follow that delicate path, that perfect path, because we're already perfect. Right? We are already perfect. We're just under the illusion of making mistakes and not being perfect. And that's why they're called lessons, because they're never really mistakes. They're all meant to lead you back to the same path, lead you back to the same destination, which is perfection, contentment, right? But you have to let go of the ideas of this world. You have to let go of your agenda in this world to really understand that. Your agenda for yourself. Your agenda should be no agenda. You know, in my perspective, because when I did that, everything transformed for me. Right? And so the next verse, number 10, goes up to say, by not setting foot outside the door, one knows the whole world. By not looking out the window, one knows the way to heaven. The further one goes, the less one knows. Hence the sage knows without having to stir, identifies without having to see it, accomplishes without having to do it. This all tells you about being, contentment in being who you really are, being the truth within you. When you close that gap between the self, that you present to this world, the self that feels like it needs to search, when it becomes this, it'll feel happy. When it gets these things, it'll feel happy. Everything that the ego wants, right? When the ego learns this, when the ego reads this book, it'll be happy. When the ego moves to this country, it'll be happy, right? You don't have to do anything to generate your own happiness. You don't have to learn anything to generate your infinite knowledge, to get to tap into your infinite knowledge. The only thing that you really have to do is be that perfect being within you. Go within. Because you have to go within to find that. You have to go within to learn that part of yourself. Right? But after that, you don't need to be anything. You don't need to become anything in this world besides yourself. Right? And the thing is, you've been trained to be everything but that. To tap into everything that distracts you besides that. So, the further one goes, the less one knows, because we have to understand that whenever we move to find different truths, right, they're all supposed to lead you back to your center. So the further you move away from that center, the less you will know. Because you have to understand that your center is the destination. Right? If you believe in a God, God is the destination. God's supposed to be within you. So you don't need to journey that far. You take the lessons that are there and you see, okay, what part of me resonates with this? That's what detachment will do for you. That's what it's done for me. The further that I try to stray, and feel like, okay, I have to do all these things, I have to learn all these things, like I move the goalposts away from myself every time I do that. For a while, it took me a while to really come back to YouTube too, because I was moving the goalposts away from myself. And then I realized, no, I can come back at any time. The same thing goes, for whenever you're pursuing your purpose, right? You don't have to pursue your purpose. Your purpose is there. It's ingrained inside of you. It's downloaded onto you. Like Neo in the Matrix, when he took those downloads and he learned all those moves, your purpose is downloaded into you like that. You just have to recognize and tap into it. That's facts. And a lot of us are sleeping on our own purpose. And we just have to recognize that we have it all within. And that's really the key right here. And you can only see that when you realize that all you have to do is trust yourself every step of the way. And so 11 goes on to say, one who pursues learning makes gains every day. One who gets to hear about the way makes losses every day. One loses and loses until one takes no action. One takes no action, nor does one have any ulterior motive for action. If your wish is to gain the empire, you should constantly refrain from meddling. By the time you meddle, you are not equal to the task of gaining the empire. And so this also relates to detachment, because the thing is, every time that you learn, right, you grow, you transform, because you transform that knowledge into wisdom, and that wisdom transforms into understanding. And in understanding, you can truly gain the truth and the light from within you. And just hearing, just knowing or just hearing about certain information isn't enough to really transform you. So that's what they mean when they say that you'll make losses every day. It's more than just hearing about it. It's more than just, having a certain feeling, a certain inclination, right? And then you'll begin to lose and lose until you take no action. And so, and another way that you lose is by having an ulterior motive. And ulterior motive is tied into agenda, and so any agenda will really hold you back. So, and that's why they say you cannot gain the empire if you're trying to meddle with the empire. You get to stand outside of the empire, and look at it objectively and let it come to you. The same way that when it comes to transforming yourself and truly gaining, you have to take an objective look at who and what you are. But first you have to recognize that who you've been looking at, this ego, hasn't really been you. You've been observing the ego the entire time. That's just been the lowest part of you. So when you really begin to look away from that and see the true nature of yourself, that's when you really begin to understand that, you already have the universe. You already have everything that you need. And so that's what they mean with this verse. At least that's the way that I've interpreted it. That's what I've gotten a channel on, at least my perspective. So, and the next one goes on to say, the world had that from which it began. And this is taken as the mother of the world. After you got the mother, you can in turn know the son. After you have known the son, go back to abiding by the mother. And to the end of your days, you will not meet with dangers. Block the openings, shut the doors, and all of your life will not run dry. Unblock the openings, add to your affairs, and to the end of your days you will be beyond help. To see the small is called discernment. To abide by the submissive is called strength. Use the light, but give up the discernment. Bring not misfortune upon yourself. This is known as following the norm. Following the norm, right, isn't always the path to go. Because what's considered normal by society standards might not be your normal, who you are. And so, discerning that, being able to really understand that and understand, put a difference between who you're told to be and who you're supposed to be. When you make a difference and a line between those things, that's when you begin to see the truth of yourself, right? And every time you let yourself open, and you add everything that society is telling you to be, you add everything that the government is telling you to be, everything that your parents are telling you to be, everything that other people are telling you to be, and you add all of that, yes, you will be beyond help, because you are bringing yourself down. You are lowering yourself from perfection. Perfection is who you were before all of that. That's why they tell you to close off of everything, detach from everything, and just go back to the source. The source is you. And so that's why you have to block the openings. That's why you have to shut the doors, because sometimes you have to really push away everything in this world, push away everyone in this world, and just understand that the truth has already been lying right in front of you. And that's what I was getting from this chapter too. Because when I decided to do that, when I decided to let go, of of what of what the world was telling me to be. Let go of what I was expected to be, of what I was expecting myself to be, based off of what I've been taught, based off of the systems that I used to follow, based off of the mind control that I bought into myself, right? What I was expecting myself to be was way too taxing and was way further away from who I truly was. And a lot of times you have to refine yourself like that. You have to go through your life with a fine tooth comb. You have to, and self reflection is how you understand these things, because truly understanding these things, it's not just a one and done thing. In this matrix of life, right? There's so many different lessons to learn on this path, and one of the lessons is just understanding when you stray off of the path of being who you are, when you start to people please, compromising, away from being who you are, right? Who you are should be good enough for the environment around you. And if the environment around you doesn't align, let go of it, because it doesn't serve you. If the people around you don't align, let go of them, because they don't serve the perfect you. The perfect you is in your heart. And you don't want to let go. You want to open up, and allow the world to dictate your heart. As a child, you let your heart guide you, because that's who you were being true to as a child. And so really tapping back into that inner child is really how you're going to get to where you need to be. And that, like I said, that's where the source lies. The source lies within. And we have to understand that. And you understand that by detachment, healthy detachment, not toxic detachment, right? And so you want to be aware, and you want to observe your own emotions. You want to observe, who, your thoughts. You want to observe those things, but you don't want to identify heavily with them. Identify with your feelings. See, identification is what pulls you down, right? Identification is what brings you into the ego, thinking that you are equal to the way that this ego is feeling, right? And you're equal to those thoughts, and the fact that you're able to observe them means that you're not equal. You're beyond it. You're in a position to look at it objectively. So let the things pass. And when you let the things pass, listen to the voice of the true you. Listen to the beat of your heart. That's what will take you where you're supposed to be. And chapter 24 says, a large state is the lower reaches of the river, the female in the world. And in the intercourse of the world, the female always gets the better of the male by stillness. It is because of her stillness that it is fitting for her to take the lower position. Hence, the large state, by taking the lower position, annexes the small state. The small state, by taking the lower position, is annexed by the large state. Thus, the one, by taking the lower position, annexes. The other, by taking the lower position, is annexed. Thus, all that the large state wants is to take the other under its wing. All that the small state wants is to have its services accepted by the other. Now, if they both get their desire, it is fitting that the large should take the lower position. And so there's so many different, because this text is, it's coming from the divine mind of whoever wrote the Tao Te Ching, right? We have to understand the many different layers of what this is saying, right? Because in the nature of duality, we have to understand that there's always going to be a constant battle, right? The God and the Satan battle, the Jesus and the devil battle, right? For, and in our terms, it would be the higher self versus the lower self, the soul, the higher self versus the ego, spirit versus ego. And because the ego, it's considered the lower self, right? And we're not in control of our higher self. The ego takes control. Because the ego, what it does is it deceives you if you're not in touch with your higher self, not in touch with your subconscious mind. It deceives you into thinking that it'll give you everything that you want, all the while by taking control over you the more that you submit to it, or the more that you try to control it, right? But when you let the ego, when you let go of it, let go of it by submission, that's when you gain control of it. Because you realize you don't have to control the ego. The ego is going to do what it's going to do. But the minute that you let go of it and you become still, that's when the ego frightens, because it dies as a result of your stillness, right? The higher self doesn't need to do anything. The ego has to continue doing things. That's why the ego has to inflate itself. It has to puff itself up. We have to puff ourselves up to feel like something in this world, to get by in this world, to survive in this world. But the higher self don't need any of that. you know, and you know, and the same thing when it comes, you know, like there's always going to be some kind of duality here, you know, and this is exactly why, you know, a lot of people will ascribe a lot of power. They'll give away a lot of their power to entities higher than them, you know, entities that they claim are higher than them, right? Government entities, you know, interdimensional entities, whatever it may be, aliens, all these different types of things, right? And the thing is, we have to understand that the way that the way that politicians establish control is by acting like they can provide a service to you, that they can change, that they can help change your world for the better, you know, and that's a position of stillness, rather than fighting back against you, rather than trying to get you to agree with them, right? They take a position of stillness. That's how they're able to maintain control, you know. And if we took a position of stillness, you know, and we recognize that they're going to do what they're going to do, they're going to try to maintain, do damage control all they want. Whether it's politicians that you believe are running the world, whether it's interdimensional entities you think are running the world, whatever it is, honestly, the minute that you let go and you become still, and I'm not saying submit to them, you know, you're submitting to them by talking about them so much, but the minute that you submit just to the way that things are and you let things be as they are, that's when you gain control. That's when you take the higher position, because you realize that you don't have to buy into these things. The minute you buy into these things, that's when you submit to them. That's when you lose control, right? And so there's so many different topics that this one part is just talking about. And by submission, that's how we really win on the spiritual path. By understanding that if we let it go, and if we understand that we don't have to control everything, we don't have to try to dominate everything, we don't have to impose our will on everything, you know, and recognize that if we just become still and we look within, we can have real power. But your power isn't outside, it's inside. And so 26 goes on to say, do that which consists in taking no action. Pursue that which is not meddlesome. Savor that which has no flavor. Make the small big and the few many. Do good to him who has done you injury. Lay plans for an accomplishment of the difficult while it is still easy. Make something big by starting with it when small. The difficult in the world must be of necessity, having its beginning in the easy. The big in the world must of necessity have its beginning in the small. Hence, it is because a sage never attempts to be great that he succeeds in becoming great. Now, one who makes promises rashly rarely keeps good faith. One who is in the habit of considering things easy will find himself beset with difficulties. Hence, even a sage does not underestimate the difficulty of things. That is why, in the end, there are no difficulties for him. And so here is just telling you that you have to let go of the facade that you're trying to put on, you know, and just like let things be as they are going to be. Let go of that control that you're trying to have. Let go of that false sense of, you know, that whole false sense of hope that you're trying to hold over everything, right? Let go of trying to be great in this world, trying to be a better human, right? You know, being a better human for what? You know, just because society tells you to be a better human, you know, in their standards, right? Society's always going to move the goalposts of what a better human looks like. You see them do that all the time. With Kanye talking about what Kanye's talking about, Kyrie talking about what Kyrie's talking about, Farrakhan talking what Farrakhan's talking about. All of them are speaking their own truths, being true to themselves, right? But at one point, all three of them were revered. Now, when they switch things up, society moves the goalposts and says you're not good enough. So that's what separates greatness from somebody who tries to be great all the time. You don't have to try at all. You just have to be authentic, right? Like I said, you're perfect already. You have it within. So the minute you see that, that's the minute that you begin to be perfect in all things. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just be you, you know. And in being you, you'll be perfect for that purpose that you got, that purpose that you're supposed to be following, right? And in doing that, you know, and you just see the authenticity, on your path. You see the truth of your path, and you're able to recognize reality right in front of you and take things as they come. That's when you begin to really become great. So, and the next one goes on to say, it is easy to maintain a situation while it is still secure. It is easy to deal with a situation before symptoms develop. It is easy to break a thing when it is yet brittle. It is easy to disperse a thing when it is yet minute. Deal with a thing while it is still nothing. Keep a thing in order before disorder sets in. A tree that can fill a man's embrace grows from a downy tip. A terrace 9 stories high rises from holes of earth. A height of 1,000 yards starts from underneath one's feet. He who does anything will ruin it. He who holds will lose it. That's where I'm talking about with detachment, right? And hence the sage, because he does nothing, never ruins anything. Because he does not hold, he loses nothing. In their enterprises, the people constantly ruin them when on the verge of success. Thus it is said, be as careful at the end as at the beginning, and there will be no ruined enterprises. Hence the sage desires not to desire, and does not value goods that are hard to come by, learns not to learn, and turns back where the multitude has overshot the mark, is able to help the myriad creatures to be natural, and yet dare not do it. And the reason why, we have to understand that all this is talking about is just walking balanced in your approach to things, having an indifferent mind, and an indifferent outlook on things, right? And a logical and objective outlook on things, right? You have control over everything, but you have to recognize that before, we hear the saying a lot that, things are going to get worse before they get better, and that it should be backwards, because things can get better before they get worse. Things can get better and they can only keep getting better, right? And you have control over everything, even if you feel like you're not in the best position. And we have to recognize that, we always just don't have to wait until things are kicking us in our asses to really start to change things. We don't have to wait until things are at their lowest point. We don't have to hit rock bottom before we can begin to change everything. We have control over it. We have to convince ourselves that we do. And we convince ourselves that we do when we let go of whatever's attaching us to staying in the same cycles that we keep ourselves in. Waking up doing the same things over and over again, knowing these things don't serve us, right? Being around people, waking up, and experiencing the same people that don't serve us, waking up, experiencing the same mindsets, doing the same things that keep us in those same mindsets that don't serve us, right? Holding on to anything, eventually we become slaves. You become a slave to your lust when you hold on to trying to chase sex so much. You become a slave to money when you hold on trying to chase money so much. You become a slave to your relationship when you try to hold on to something that's not working, when you try to hold on to something that doesn't serve you. You become a slave to other people when you try to meet their expectations all the time, when you're trying to people please all the time. There's so many things that are just geared towards you being a slave in the society, unconsciously, right? Giving away parts of yourself for a check. And we have to recognize that, the minute that we stop holding on to these things, because of the promise of success, because of the promise of peace, because of the promise of, that 2-week vacation, because of the promise of, love, because of the promise of sex, because of the promise of all these things that we're told will make us happy, and we let go of these things and we just don't desire them anymore, right? We become balanced in our desire, in control of our desire, right? In control of our lust for success, in control of our lust, in general, right? When we come in control of these things and we recognize that we really have full agency over these things and how we move forward in this world, and whether it's in line with our purpose or not, when we come in line with these things, that's when nothing can rule us. You cannot rule your own world but still be a slave to your lower desires. That's an oxymoron, right? You cannot rule your own world but still be a slave to society's expectations. You can't rule your own world but still try to people please. How can you be a king but you're still trying to people please, asking the people, for them to treat you like a king, right? You have to treat yourself like a king. You have to embody a king, and carry that with you every day. Act like that every day, And trust me, people will respond accordingly. Or queen, if you're a female watching this video, right? So the next verse goes in to say, number 33, one who is good at being a warrior does not appear formidable. One who is good at fighting is never roused in anger. One who is good at overcoming his adversary does not join issue with him. One who is good at employing others humbles himself before them. This is known as the virtue of non-contention. This is known as making the use of efforts of others. This is known as a limit that is as old as heaven, right? And as short as that one is, it's still very powerful, right? You don't have to put on a mask, right? See, the thing is, along with the ego, right, there is something called a persona. And the persona is the mask that we put onto this world to try to appear a certain way for society, for others, for the people that we want to accept us. The persona is what keeps you away from understanding the shadow of yourself, understanding the truth of yourself, right? And sometimes that persona is necessary. It's another extension of the ego, but the persona is the mask that we put on to get by in this world. And sometimes that persona can get too powerful. It can get, and when it becomes too powerful, it becomes a liability, right? You don't have to act any certain way. You just have to act and be who you are, right? And that's why, when you know something, because there's only two people in this world, those who know and those who don't know. When you know, and you're not trying to debate through your actions, you're not trying to debate through your character, through how you present yourself, through the way that you dress, like you're not trying to debate, you're not trying to prove anything to anyone, that's when you're in power, right? And we do this a lot. How we present ourselves, how we talk, whatever, it's all a facade, it's all a lie. Even what you see about me is all a lie, right? This body, what you see, what you might think about me, is all a lie, because you can't, unless you have your third eye open, and beyond that too, you can't see the truth of my being, right? This physical body is not the truth of my being, because this physical body is going to die one day, and this physical body is a contradiction into, compared to all the other physical bodies that I had. But the truth of myself is more than just your human eyes can see, than just my human eyes can see, can fathom. It's beyond that. And that's why I say, you don't have to contend, you don't have to put on a mask, it's all different types of things, right, that we do just to feel like something. But in reality, it's making us feel like nothing. And sometimes we can become so addicted to this. This is why Instagram is such a powerful app in terms of either building yourself or destroying yourself, because you're only showing what you want people to see. It's not just Instagram, right? It's many other different things. And before social media, it was just the way that you showed yourself in general. And so, like, we really have to be aware of this, right? Be aware of the persona, because the persona can either make or break you. So whether you close that gap between the persona and the true self, it's up to you. And so the next thing I want to get into, verse 39, if the common people are constantly unafraid of death, why intimidate them with killing? If the people were constantly afraid of death, and I were able to arrest and put to death those who innovate, then who would dare? If the people are constantly afraid of death, then they will constantly be an executioner. Now to kill on behalf of the executioner is what is described as chopping wood on behalf of the master carpenter. Now those who chop wood on behalf of the master carpenter, few will escape hurting their own hands instead. And so here, it also has to deal with detachment, because, see, the thing is, we attach so heavily to this thing that we call life, right? When death is going to be what sets us free. So, see, when you understand death, you will liberate yourself, because you won't have anything to hold you back. You won't have attachments. Your attachments won't be so hard and heavy in this life, because you know that where you're going is greater than this. You understand the reality that what's here is nothing more than a school and lessons for you to learn. But when you graduate from life, and and really the life here is actually the true death, the true degradation of consciousness. But when you graduate and you experience eternal life, and you have to go through that transition, You understand death, right? So when you understand death, you go through that transition. That's when you can really understand that, you had nothing to fear in the first place. See, we attach so heavily to our fears that we make them out to be anything but fears. And attachment is the root of fear. Or fear is the root of attachment. If we're holding on to something, it's because we're scared of losing it, scared of the outcome, scared of what's going to happen, scared of the unknown. That's why we hold on to whatever makes us feel comfortable, so that we don't feel scared anymore. And so when you detach, and especially when it comes to the matters of life, right? Because everything is a matter of survival, right? When we really get down to it, that's what detachment is for. Because you are becoming indifferent, and you are recognizing that, okay, wherever this is going is wherever it's going. It's obviously meant to take me where I'm supposed to go in life. It's obviously meant to transform. It's obviously meant as a lesson. So we have to see, when you detach, you can see things that way, instead of saying, I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose that. For what? Because you're going to lose it all at the end of the day anyway, when you transition, when you die. So when you understand death, most of your attachments will disappear, just off of a real understanding. So read books that deal with death, that deal with understanding death. Understand them. If you haven't gotten Judy K. King's 3 books on understanding the Egyptian Book of the Dead, get those. If you haven't read any of the books of the dead, get those. Right? I'll be talking more about the death and the death process and understanding death on this channel too. But what we really have to understand is that the more that we attach to what we call life, the more we suffer. That's why the Buddha said life is suffering. Death is liberation. So, verse 40, that men are hungry is because too many live off the taxes. That is why they are hungry. That the people are not in good order is because those in authority have ulterior motives for their actions. That is why they are not in good order. That the common people treat death lightly is because they set too much store by life, just like what I just said before. That is why they treat death lightly, is because it's precisely that the man has no use for life who is wiser than him that values life. We have to recognize that the life that we live here is a life of imperfection. Humanity is a life of imperfection, is a facade of imperfection, because the truth of humanity is nothing, it pales in comparison to the truth of our real identities, right? Like I said, this flesh and blood that you see right here, this flesh and bones, it is not the real me. It pales in comparison to the real me, my higher self, right? Even these words, they don't measure up to the light that I'm trying to break down just for this camera to understand, to relay back to you guys. The sound is just, it's not nearly as much as the light that I'm trying to give to you guys, so that you can understand and then see if it resonates and applies to you, so that you can transform, right? And so, as you can see here in just this one verse, all of this has to do with attaching to life, attaching to humanity, attaching to trying to improve your life, trying to be better in life. And there's nothing wrong with doing those things, but when you attach to those things heavily, that's when you suffer. Because like I said, attachment creates fear, and fear will bind your spiritual power. It'll bind everything. You cannot live in a survival state. You have to be in control. And so this is why learning how to control your mind is so important. So that you're not a slave to your own mind. You're not a slave to your body. And that's very key. That's why I made the chakra series, just so that people can possibly get an understanding and see where they can take that information. That's why I'm writing my chakra book right now. And so, verse 41, a man is supple and weak when alive, but hard and stiff when dead. The myriad creatures and grass and trees are pliant and fragile when alive, but dried and shriveled when dead. Thus it is said, the hard and the strong are the comrades of death. The supple and the weak are the comrades of life. Hence a weapon that is strong will not vanquish. A tree that is strong will come to its end. Thus the strong and big take the lower position. The supple and weak takes the upper position. Like I said before, this flesh and bones, it passes away. And it tells you even here, that your body in itself becomes stronger once you pass. It becomes more durable once you pass. And that's very key. Because when we really understand, we just submit, to ourselves, submit to our purpose, submit to our higher selves. So, if you believe in God, submit to God, and you submit to the way that you're supposed to be following, the purpose that you're supposed to be following. You submit to that way, and you let that take the ruling position in your life. That's when you begin to see the truth. That's when you really begin to gain true strength. And trying to dominate it, trying to control it so much, especially while we're alive, while we're going through these lessons, trying to control it so much instead of really understanding the lessons and letting the darkness transform us. Trying to control it so much limits that experience for us. And the last verse that I'm going to get into is verse 43. In the world there is nothing more submissive and weak than water. Yet for attacking that which is unyielding and strong, nothing can take precedence over it. This is because there is nothing that can take its place. The weak overcomes the unbending, and the submissive overcomes the strong. This everyone in the world knows, yet no one can put it into practice. Hence, in the words of the sage, one who takes on himself of the abuse hurled against the state is called a ruler, worthy of offering sacrifices to the gods of earth and millet. One who takes on himself the calamities of the state is called a king, worthy of dominion over the entire empire. Straightforward words seem paradoxical. And just that's one of my favorite verses in this entire book, honestly. And and like I said, my explanations from here, I'm just tying them all to the law of detachment. I'm not even explaining the many different layers that these things go into. And honestly, when you read it for yourself, you'll see things in a much different light than I see them, because obviously two people can't look at the same thing and come to the same conclusions, or all the same conclusions, right? And so this is why we really have to really understand, when we let go, when we detach, when we become like water, and we let the experiences, we let the hardships, we let the pains of life pass right through us, and recognize that all those things were just things, and they pass right through us, and we come back out on the other side unchanged. We let those things pass right through us, and we stay true to our nature. Our nature is like water. We stay true to our higher nature. We recognize that all those things, they were nothing more than just things. All those emotions were nothing more than just emotions. They were nothing more than just feelings. Those thoughts were nothing more than just thoughts. So we're more than that. We're greater than that. And just like that, with large volumes of water, it can destroy anything. And so that's really key. When you tap into the highest part of yourself, when you tap into where God's trying to put you where you're supposed to be, right? That's when you begin to move those large volumes of water, and those large volumes of water can destroy anything. The same way that a simple cup of water refreshes you, heals you, and a drop of water does absolutely nothing, right? The larger that gets, is like a representation of the larger that you get when you understand the perfect being that's within you. And you can only understand that when you really begin to let go of this mask that you've been wearing around this world, of this person that you've been told to be, this person that you've been trying to be, instead of just being who you were to begin with, who you're supposed to be. And so that's the video, dealing with the law of detachment through the lens of the Tao Te Ching. And there's still another half of this book that I haven't covered, that I'm gonna cover in the future, right? Because this is a really interesting topic. But law of detachment, man, very, very key. Like I said, you don't want to be a slave to your experiences. You don't want to be a slave to life itself, but you want to be a master of it. And you become a master by essentially taking a step back and allowing things to fall into place, rather than trying to control everything, rather than trying to impose your will on everything, trying to be, something that's accepted, something that somebody told you to be, right? That society told you to be. And so that's what I have to say about the law of detachment with the Tao Te Ching, first part at least. So if you enjoyed the content, make sure you subscribe and put notifications on so you can get notified when I post fire content just like this. And like the video, comment, let me know your thoughts, and also pick up the book called the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu. I'm gonna leave the link in the description for the version that I have, and I hope it inspired y'all. I wish you all luck in your journey and peace.